Hey Gengar Gang, what is going on? My name is Ryan, this is the Analytic Gengar, and welcome to another one of our videos. In today's quite possibly controversial video, how to clean your vintage sealed product. And a guide where I will actually attempt a live on-screen demonstration of such a technique. So today's video, guys, is inspired by my recent pickups. I purchased a couple of these 2010 era tins. As you can see, this one is nice and shiny and very clean and it looks good, and then there is this very gross dank one. Now, some things that I want to call out almost right away. You'll see this sticker, which I personally think detracts from this item, especially when it sits in a private collection. And the other thing is that if you notice Entei's face on the two of them, this one just looks a lot sharper and a lot cleaner. Part of the reason for that is not actually because it's out of focus, it's actually because this is covered in a layer of dust that probably is from bad storage, both as a seller and the original owner. And also, you know, it just kind of takes away from the overall value of this. In an ideal world, sealed product looks new, and that's part of the reason why you want it. So why would you want to clean your stuff? Again, you want to clean it when you put it away so that contaminants and dirt and grime on the surface of your items don't take away from their value over time. Like in this situation where you get a tin, and because it hasn't been kept or stored properly, you have nicks in the plastic. You can feel the kind of grit that is embedded on this plastic, which again takes away from its inherent value. And because you want to put it up on a display case, you want it to look as good as possible. And of course, maybe for resale, right? You might be a seller on eBay or Mercari and you might want this stuff resold. Taking a picture of this item versus taking a picture of this item will probably have an impact on your final sale price. And part of the reason for that will be because this item just looks like it was more well kept over time than this one was. So with that said, we will now go ahead and demonstrate a actual real life cleaning of this tin. Now, before I get started on that, I will go ahead and say this comes with risk. And I have done this before in the past. I have practiced on bulk Pokemon cards. I have practiced on real life items that were cheaper than vintage items. And I have basically mastered this craft down to a T. It should also be said, I'm not doing this to deceive anyone. I'm doing this because I want the items in my sealed collection to look as clean and pristine as possible. So it's not being done, to kind of like fix up something for sale. So it should be said. Now, to that effect, you shouldn't be doing it for that, and you also shouldn't be trying this because it is your intention to do something like, make something look better, but at the end of the day, you end up destroying part of the collectible, because that would also be really bad. Imagine cleaning a $10,000 booster box and really royally messing it up. So that again comes at your own risk, but if you are delicate, if you are appropriate, and if you take your time, I will say in the past I have had no problem cleaning and just generally sanitizing collectibles that I get in the mail, and I've also had no problem wiping down or just making sure that cards being sent into PSA are also clean. So bear those two items in mind. Again, be careful, be delicate. I have a feeling a lot of people may say, oh, well, this sounds like a risky activity. Well, you probably also shouldn't be cleaning it with a hose pipe, right? You should probably be taking your time and doing it appropriately. So as a result, I will now be demonstrating that. So as you can see, the first thing that I'm doing right here is this is a hot pack. So I'm taking this hot pack, it's been microwaved very lightly, that's how you warm it up, and it's not a heat gun, because a heat gun could theoretically melt the plastic wrapping on this pack. But what I'm trying to do right now is just heat up this adhesive on these stickers so that they peel off a little bit more gently. And as you can see right here, they are actually peeling pretty well. Oh geez, that's gross. So the other thing to bear in mind is that because these are older items, they may have a bit of crustiness to them. So in this particular case, this thing is more like flaking off than peeling off, and that's because it's gotten so old. Think about it. This was last on store shelves like back in 2010. So as a result, there's probably a lot going on with just the organic decay of the adhesive there. What I'm doing right now is I'm taking a card saver, which has a bit of an edge, and again, very delicately, very lightly, I'm just trying to pick up an edge here. And the idea behind this is, again, very simple. We're just trying to get this off. It looks a little gross, and it's definitely detracting from the overall aesthetic of this tin. Again, don't apply firm heat. You want to be using something a little bit more delicate, and then just kind of holding it onto the surface. As you can see, this is safe for the human skin, so it's not like it's anything crazy, but it is just enough heat that hopefully what happened just now in that gigantic part just kind of flaking off will also then happen here, where it just flakes off and kind of falls off. So I'm going to do a little bit more of an aggressive tactic right now, just to kind of see if we can expedite this process. And there you have it, guys. I now have that almost entirely off. It looks like whoever was markering this price tag, and as you can see right here, the price tag was markered quite a bit. It looks like they got a little bit over here, which is, again, super obnoxious, but you know, no one assumed that these things are going to sell for so much money, so I get why no one would really care about it. Now, the next thing that I'm going to do is I have a clean paper towel. I'm going to put it down on the surface that I'm cleaning it on, and again, that's just to protect my white playmat more so than anything. The next thing I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to have a clean paper towel, and I'm going to have this wet. And as you can see, this one looks damp. And basically what I'm going to go ahead and do is this entire tin, I'm going to wipe down the face of this tin just to show you the kind of dirt and grime that accrues over years. And there, I don't know if you need any more proof than that, but that is the kind of dirt and grime that basically slowly cakes onto your items over the years. So when you don't store things properly, this is how they end up collecting dust, and it can be really disgusting. So I'm going to go ahead and fast forward for a little bit and show you guys what that ends up looking like when it's finally clean. Alrighty guys, and we are back for a intermediary check-in. So a couple of things I wanted to note. First things first, this is the condition of the napkin over that period of time. So you can now see it's basically just collecting all of the dust. A couple of things. One is to always try to use a clean side of the napkin. When you're cleaning dust, in the same way that you can give yourself swirl marks on an automobile, you can actually swirl up and scratch the plastic wrapping of a tin or a booster box, because what can end up happening is you can collect dust particles on this, and then in the same way that sandpaper has abrasives glued onto it, those dust particles become particulate matter that can actually scratch the surface of your tin. So you want to be very careful about that. The other thing is that when it comes to something like this, and I'll just call this a plastic corner, you want to also be very delicate with the way that you work this. So one of the things that I noticed particularly about tins and booster boxes is that they will have this crinkly shrink wrap around the corners, and you can, feel free to get a little bit in there. Again, cleaning these things takes a little bit of time and practice, so you should probably try to practice on one that is from a recent time period, but in the grand scheme of things, it's not that hard. The most important thing is to be delicate and as well work slowly. and work in a fashion that is calm and collected. Because again, sometimes, and fun fact, I have cleaned my EX Deoxys booster box, so it is possible, but you need to just be very, very delicate. And again, the idea here is not to wash this thing down with a garden hose, it's just to remove any surface contaminants or other pollutants that can further deteriorate the condition of the packaging. So what we're doing here is critical to extending the shelf life of these vintage collectibles and is not meant in any way, shape, or form to damage them further than what they already have been damaged or deteriorated over time. To that effect, you notice that I didn't use any kind of soap water, and part of the reason is exactly that. I don't want to put soap on these things because I don't necessarily know how that's going to react with the surface of the plastic. But one of the things that I will kind of use in this next step to remove this adhesive is a adhesive remover. So these guys aren't sponsors, but I have tested this on recent Pokemon products, specifically recent Pokemon tins, and what I've found is that it's totally safe to use, so that is good. So you want to, again, be very delicate, very gentle. The idea here is not to soak this thing down in Goo Gone, who by the way is not a sponsor of today's video, but you want to use just enough that it can swipe up and remove all of this gross adhesive that is in the corner of this rather unsightly tin. So the idea here, and as you can see, this is how much I have, literally this much, and I'm just barely going to wipe it on. And I don't know if you can see that, but there you go, black mark gone. Literally the cleanest presentation ever. I'm also going to clean just slightly to the left and right of it. Again, sometimes they'll put like some gross stuff on the corners, and as you can see, the stuff works literal wonders. That is what I've picked up. Let me go ahead and focus the camera on that super quickly. So as you can see right there, it did kind of basically scoop up everything that was kind of gross and dank on the surface, and that's perfect. That's exactly what we wanted. This tin looks now amazing compared to its original state. The next thing I'm going to do is make sure that my hands are clean, and with another clean paper towelette, I'm just going to wipe down the surface one more time. And it should be said, these towels, these paper towels, are not soaking wet. They are damp. But that shouldn't mean, you know, they're overly wet, because that can also cause some damage to the tins. Finally but not least, just a dry paper towel to just kind of wipe off the surface one last time, kind of get everything nice and tidy. And there is your finished product. So as you can see, from there to there, a world of difference. This tin ended up looking a lot better than what it started out as. So just to kind of recap the steps necessary to clean a tin, and by the way, the same exact steps could be replicated for a booster box. I have done it before in the past. Here is some video of me doing it with a Unbroken Bonds booster box that I kind of left outside just for the sake of this video, just to kind of get some dust on it. But in short, you want to do a quick wipe down with a moist towelette or a wet paper towel that is damp but not soaking or dripping wet. And the idea behind this is to remove any surface level contaminants. Again, surface level contaminants like human skin cells and oil can actually deteriorate plastic over time, which is very dangerous to the condition of these types of tins and booster boxes. And in addition to that, surfactants such as dust can actually settle on the surface and scratch the surface over time, also contributing to plastic deterioration. So again, something that you should consider when you are working with these types of tins and this type of plastic wrapping, which is very common among Pokemon collectibles in the sealed and vintage community. The next thing you want to do is pick off any kind of gross stickers and stuff like that. Something like this guy right here, I bought like 12 of these on Amazon whenever like I give myself a black and blue, which happens pretty much all the time because I'm very clumsy. But something like this you can pick up on Amazon, and they're actually good for a variety of reasons. Some people would argue that a heat gun is best for stuff like adhesive removal, and if you Google adhesive removal, typically it's people who work at car shops who are taking off like vinyl wrapping. Unfortunately, that can't be the case here because that much heat can probably very easily melt the wrapping on these things, as well as potentially damage the cards by causing a temperature influx. So you don't want to do that. Something like this is, by the way, still hot. I can put it on my skin and hold it in my hand, no problem, but the benefit is that it's warm enough to mildly remove the adhesive in a non-shocking way, which is exactly what you're going for. Next up, you want to sanitize. So if there's anything on the surface that's kind of gross or gunky, as you saw, we had some marker, we had some adhesive, a little bit of something like a Goo Gone or a similar product will probably help you out there. The idea with this is to not use a crazy amount of this stuff. You again don't want to be pouring this stuff onto your tins. Instead, take a small Q-tip or take a small piece of a paper towel and repeat the process. If you've noticed, one theme throughout this entire video has been use very little bit and do it very lightly, because you don't want to ever do too much at one time, as this may cause some problems down the road, especially when it comes to things like water getting in between the plastic and the wrapping, or some other nightmare scenario like that. And finally, you want to just wipe it down one last time. So I would use a clean paper towel. Again, that's a big thing, is use a clean paper towel that is damp to wipe it down, and then you can dry it out. Or if you were very good about the damp paper towel, I would just leave it out here on a shelf. I'm gonna actually leave mine right here sitting for like 4 hours or probably overnight, and it'll dry out and any kind of vapors will escape. After that, this tin is in the perfect situation to get stored up. As you can see, it looks a lot better, so I'm very happy to display this in my display case now. And alternatively, if you wanted to sell it back, at least you know that it looks good and that it is clean, which I think any person on eBay will appreciate as a buyer. So there you guys have it. That is how you clean your vintage items. Again, guys, the main goal behind this video, albeit controversy, is really to just kind of inform you that this kind of stuff can happen. As you can see on screen in live real time, it's not impossible, and it can actually do a lot of real good for your collection, because it can really help spruce up your old school collectibles. It can keep them in better shape, and the worst thing that could possibly happen is a situation where you neglect cleaning it, and then because it's dirty, something happens to it, like the plastic wrapping deteriorating. It has happened before. It may not be as well documented in the Pokemon community, but look up the horror stories and people will tell you all the time. Now, if you guys want to see a video where I clean a booster box, like I said, the same exact steps apply for booster boxes that apply here, but if you guys really want to see a booster box one, let me know down below in the comments. Also, I have cleaned Pokemon cards before. You'd be surprised how many times you order something and it has some weird grime or it has some weird dust particles on it. Again, a similar process can be set up to clean up your cards, mainly damp paper towels, dry paper towel, making sure you're not too rough on the corners, and as long as you do that, you should be in a good spot. But yeah, guys, thanks again for checking out today's video. If you like what you saw, make sure to leave a like, make sure to comment and let me know down below. If you have any suggestions or thoughts on this process, also feel free to let me know down below. If you're new to the channel, I definitely recommend checking out some of our other content. I appreciate your viewership. If you're new to the channel and you haven't already, feel free to subscribe. Wink, wink, hint, hint. And thanks again for joining today's video, friends. We'll talk to you real soon. Peace.